welcome to or back to Fibro Life Diaries. Today I thought I would share my diagnosis story of my fibro and how that went. But in order to do that we have to go back all the way to 2007 when I was 5 years old. So, bit of background. Fibro can be caused by trauma. I had probably my fair share of trauma growing up. And I'll just share brief details of this because it provides some context. So in 2007 my parents got divorced. I was 5 years old. I don't hugely remember it, but it obviously has had an impact on me through my life. I've had separate parents. 2008 my dad met my stepmom. She's not my stepmom anymore. They've since divorced, but she was. So in this video we'll call her my stepmom. That was all good. In 2010 my mum met my little sister's dad. And he was not the nicest of people. Then in 2014 my dad and stepmom were expecting twins, and unfortunately we lost one of the twins. She was stillborn, and that was another sort of chip away at me a little bit. I would have been 11 at the time, and suddenly I'd lost this baby sister, and now I never met her, and I have really complex feelings around that. Never had the chance to meet her. She was stillborn, but I didn't go to her funeral. I made that choice when I was young. And yeah, I have mixed feelings around that, but ultimately it's a thing that happened, and we continue with life. In 2019 I also lost my grandpa, and he was one of those people that was just always there, you know. He was very, I don't know how to describe him other than that he was just, yeah, one of those people that you thought would just keep going. He developed cancer and he died end of January in 2019. So that was a tough one. I was 16 at that point. So at this point is where we come back to talking about my little sister's dad. So he was physically and verbally abusive towards myself, and that was over quite a long period, over, you know, quite a number of years, and that's the sort of major trauma of my life, and quite possibly the main contributing factor to my fibro these days. And there's no way to know that for sure, but it's most likely a big part of that. So in 2020, obviously we had COVID, and everyone was at home a lot more, and in either June or July of 2020 I ended up running away from home. I got away, and then my dad came and got me, and a few days later my mum came as well, and we all moved back home, and we're all doing well now. And from there my health really started to go up and down. I was having a lot of issues which turned out to be anxiety related. Christmas 2020 I ended up spending Boxing Day in hospital. Didn't know what was wrong with me. Turns out it was anxiety taking its physical form. And then, yeah, things kind of kept going from there. I kept going to see doctors about varying things. Then in 2022, early 2022, I ended up spending another day in the hospital for a really bad migraine. And at this point, I started going, you know, these migraines aren't, they're not isolated, they must be linked to something else that's wrong. Because I have autism, I have ADHD, And I have had varying health complaints my whole life. More so since 2020, really. But I was one of those kids, people are like, oh, you're not sick again, you've not got something sore again. So I can't really say when the fibro started because it could have been right back then. And then later on in 2022, injured my wrist at work. I was working as an aircraft mechanic and I hurt my wrist quite badly. So I went to the doctors and they said repetitive strain injury. Just take it easy for a while. And then it just kept persisting. It wasn't going away, and at this point I was having back pain, hip pain, knee pain, and I don't know at what point I realised that 19, 20, 21-year-olds shouldn't have that level of joint pain. And I went back and forth to the doctors trying to say, look, I'm here for this thing today, but I think it's linked to this, this and this. And I had a doctor who was quite old school and was very much, I'm the doctor, I'll tell you what's wrong. Don't you go try and tell me. And I ended up actually moving surgery and found a new GP who's been really brilliant. She listens. And the previous doctor had sent me to rheumatology to see what was going on. They'd done blood tests for arthritis and things, none of that. They'd done a few different tests. So they sent me to rheumatology. And then I went into the hospital and sat down in that appointment that day and said to the rheumatologist, look, I've been waiting for 1.5 years for this appointment. I've done some research in that time. These are my symptoms. I think it's fibromyalgia. These are my reasons for that. These are the things that could have caused it. These are the symptoms I'm having, all of this. Just sat and explained it all to him. Went back in my timeline as far as I could. And he just sort of went, you could be right there. And that was kind of it with the appointment. So I went back home. He said he would send a letter to my GP and they'd get back to me with the results. And I heard nothing. So I ended up actually calling my GP about something completely unrelated. And I was speaking to my doctor. And I said to her, just while I've got you on the phone, like, have I actually been diagnosed with fibromyalgia or something else? Or is there more tests we need to do? Or what's going on with this? And she went and had a look and she went, oh yeah, you've been diagnosed with fibromyalgia. I thought they would have sent a letter about that. I said, no, I've had nothing. But that was the actual diagnosis. It was a bit anticlimactic. But there we are. So I really did have to advocate for myself a lot. I had to do a lot of my own research. It was not very easy, but we did get there. And much as fibromyalgia is not a good thing to be diagnosed with because there's not treatment, at least now I know what's wrong, and I know there is actually something wrong. And that was a lot of what was a big help with it. Fast forward to last month, I was just having my normal morning at work. I stood in the hallway at my client's house and I just suddenly kind of went, fibromyalgia. I'm disabled. And it's always going to be this way. And it's not going to get any better. In fact, it quite possibly will get worse. And I'm not going to be able to do all the things I wanted to do with my life. And it really hit me. Really, really just suddenly hit me that this is me. This is it. And that's part of what started the ball rolling for creating this channel. Was because I just, in that moment, felt very alone. And I mean, I won't let it stop me doing a lot of things. There are some that it will. But I'll find ways to do the things I want to do. And much as it's shit, it doesn't get me down on a daily basis. I don't let it. Because this is my life. This is how it's going to be, and I am determined to enjoy it. Because you only get one. So why should I spend it being miserable about something that is and will always be and can never be changed? So that's me. That's my diagnosis story. That's the bit of background there. If you get any specific questions about it, feel free to ask them, and I will answer them to the best of my ability, be that about my personal experience or about how it works in general. Please go for it. Please ask. Because that's the whole point of me doing this, is that I want to share and I want to help people. But just remember, if you do have a diagnosis of a chronic illness or any of these sorts of things, you're not alone. There's quite a lot of us that do. And we do all feel lonely at times. But there's a whole community just here. It's getting bigger by the day. Anyway, I'll see you next week.